Hey y'all, it's your friendly neighborhood therapist, and it is March 2nd, 2025. And guess what? The month of March is Women's History Month. Now, the past 2 years, I have truly wanted to do Women's History Month the same way that I have done Black History Month and presenting a new woman every day to teach y'all about. But March is such a busy month for me that it just never seems to happen. So I won't promise that I'll give you somebody every day, but I'll try to give you a couple people a week, okay? Now, that being said, I have a very interesting person for this first day. A very interesting person. I had never heard of this woman before in my life, which is crazy to me given what she actually did, because what she did was pivotal to the field I work in. Now, she wasn't in the mental health field, but she made some things change in this field. So let's get into it. All right, so this is Miss Elizabeth Cochrane Seamen, born Elizabeth Jane Cochrane on May 5th, 1864. And she was better known by her pen name, Nellie Bly. She was an American journalist, and she was widely known for her record breaking trip around the world in 72 days. But what she is better known for is an expose in which she worked undercover to report on a mental institution from within. She pioneered her field and launched a new kind of investigative journalism. She is one of the first, if not the first, journalist ever to go on an undercover mission to expose wrongdoing. And she's also considered the first star journalist. Like, she was a star, she was famous at her time. But let's learn a little bit more about her. So, Elizabeth was born May 5th, 1864, in Cochrane's Mills, now part of Burrell Township, Armstrong County, Pennsylvania. Her father, Michael, was born about 1810 and started as a laborer and mill worker before buying the local mill and most of the land surrounding his family farmhouse. He married twice and he had 10 children with his first wife, Catherine, and five more children to include Elizabeth, his 13th daughter, with his second wife, Mary Jane Kennedy. In 1879, she enrolled at Indiana Normal School, now Indiana University of Pennsylvania, for one term but was forced to drop out due to lack of funds. In 1880, her mother moved her family to Allegheny City, which was later annexed by the city of Pittsburgh. So, the start of her career. In 1885, a column in the Pittsburgh Dispatch titled What Girls Are Good For stated that girls were principally for birthing children and keeping house. This prompted Elizabeth to write a response under the pseudonym Lonely Orphan Girl. The editor, George Madden, was impressed with her passion and ran an advertisement asking the author to identify herself. When Cochrane introduced herself to the editor, he offered her the opportunity to write a piece for the newspaper, again under the pseudonym Lonely Orphan Girl. Her first article for the Dispatch, titled The Girl Puzzle, argued that not all women would marry and that what was needed were better jobs for women. Revolutionary for her time. She was about that work life. She was like, hey, everybody don't want babies. Everybody don't be in the kitchen. Everybody want to be cooking. Everybody want to be doing all that. Some of us want to do other stuff. Some of us have other dreams, and that has to be okay. Her second article, Mad Marriages, was about how divorce affected women. In it, she argued for reform of divorce laws. Mad Marriages was published under the byline of Nellie Bly rather than Lonely Orphan Girl, because at the time it was customary for female journalists to use pen names to conceal their gender so that readers would not discredit them. The editor chose Nellie Bly after the African American title character in the popular song Nellie Bly by Stephen Foster. Madden was impressed again and offered her a full time job. As a writer, she focused her early work for the Pittsburgh Dispatch on the lives of working women, writing a series of investigative articles on female factory workers. However, the newspaper soon received complaints from factory owners about her writing, and she was reassigned to women's pages to cover fashion, society, and gardening, the usual role for female journalists at the time. She quickly became dissatisfied, and she was still only 21 years old, but was determined to do something no girl had ever done before. She then traveled to Mexico to serve as a foreign correspondent, spending nearly half a year reporting on the lives and customs of the Mexican people. Her dispatches later were published in book form as 6 Months in Mexico. In one report, she protested the imprisonment of a local journalist for criticizing the Mexican government, then a dictatorship under Porfirio Diaz. When Mexican authorities learned of Bly's report, they threatened her with arrest, prompting her to flee the country. Safely home, she accused Diaz of being a tyrannical czar, suppressing the Mexican people and controlling the press. Well, damn, she could live right now, couldn't she? She'd be writing an article about another certain somebody, huh? All right, so the big thing, the thing that drew me to wanting to talk about this woman. her asylum expose. So, burdened again with theater and arts reporting, she left the Pittsburgh Dispatch in 1887 for New York City. She faced rejection after rejection as news editors would not consider hiring a woman. Penniless after 4 months, she talked her way into the offices of Joseph Pulitzer's newspaper, The New York World, and took an undercover assignment for which she agreed to feign insanity to investigate reports of brutality and neglect at the women's lunatic asylum on Blackwell's Island, which has now been renamed Roosevelt Island. So it wasn't easy for her to be admitted to the asylum, right? She first decided to check herself into a boarding house called Temporary Homes for Females. She stayed up all night to give herself the wide eyed look of a disturbed woman and began making accusations that the other boarders were insane. Bly told the assistant matron, "There are so many crazy people about, and one can never tell what they will do." She refused to go to bed and eventually scared so many of the other boarders that the police were called to take her to the nearby courthouse. Once examined by a police officer, a judge, and a doctor, she was taken to Bellevue Hospital for a few days. Then, after evaluation, she was sent by boat to Blackwell's Island. Admitted to the asylum, she experienced the deplorable conditions firsthand. Now, she thought that she was in there for months. This is how bad it was. She was only in there for 10 days, y'all. I don't think people realize how women used to be treated back in the day. There were women put in insane asylums for PMS, for mood swings, because they were a little sad. They would get diagnosed with things like hysteria. There were women put in there because they spent too much money. There were women put in insane asylums back then because they didn't speak English. Wig said he only wants the language of America to be English now. So imagine, women, imagine somebody not speaking English yet and getting put in an insane asylum or a mental health institution, as we call them now, because they don't speak the language. Anyway, after 10 days, the asylum released her at the world's behest, the publishing company she was working for, newspaper company she was working for. Her report, published October 9th, 1887, and later in book form as 10 Days in a Madhouse, caused a sensation, prompted the asylum to implement reforms, and brought her lasting fame. Nellie Bly had a significant impact on American culture and shed light on the experiences of marginalized women beyond the bounds of the asylum as she ushered in the era of stunt girl journalism. In 1893, Bly used the celebrity status she had gained from her asylum reporting skills to schedule an exclusive interview with the allegedly insane serial killer Lizzie Halliday. Biographer Brooke Kroger argues her two-part series in October 1887 was a sensation, effectively launching the decade of stunt or detective reporting, a clear precursor to investigative journalism and one of Joseph Pulitzer's innovations that helped give new journalism of the 1880s and 1890s its moniker. The employment of stunt girls has often been dismissed as a circulation boosting gimmick of the sensationalist press. However, the genre also provided women with their first collective opportunity to demonstrate that, as a class, they had the skills necessary for the highest level of general reporting. The stunt girls with Bly as their prototype were the first women to enter the journalistic mainstream in the 20th century. So, on a more personal note, in 1895, Bly married millionaire manufacturer Robert Seamen. She was 31 and Seaman was 73. Now, I also think she might have been one of them ones that married for the bag. Because 31 and 73, ma'am, and you actually didn't need a husband because you made your own money. Go ahead, girl. Due to her husband's failing health, she left journalism and succeeded her husband as head of the Ironclad Manufacturing Company, which made steel containers such as milk cans and boilers. Seaman died in 1904. That same year, Ironclad began manufacturing the steel barrel that was the model for the 55-gallon oil drum still in widespread use in the United States. It is believed that Bly invented that barrel, but the inventor was registered as Henry Warren. They often gave credit to men for things that women did at that time, so it would not shock me if she invented that barrel. But Bly was also an inventor in her own right with patents. She received a U.S. patent for a novel milk can and a U.S. patent for a stacking garbage can, both under her married name of Elizabeth Cochrane Seamen. For a time, she was one of the leading women industrialists in the United States. but her negligence and embezzlement by a factory manager resulted in the ironclad manufacturing company going bankrupt. According to the biographer Brooke Kroger again, she ran her company as a model of social welfare, replete with health benefits and recreational facilities. But Bly was hopeless at understanding the financial aspects of her business and ultimately lost everything. Unscrupulous employees bilked the firm of hundreds of thousands of dollars, troubles compounded by protracted and costly bankruptcy litigation. So, yes, she ended up dealing with people who wasn't no good. And that's what was her ultimate demise because she really wasn't a businesswoman in the sense of finances. But her company was a model of social welfare. She had health benefits and recreational facilities for her workers. She cared about their wellness. hmm It's companies today that don't care about y'all wellness. So back to reporting, she covered the women's suffrage procession of 1913 for the New York Evening Journal. Her article's headline was Suffragists Are Men's Superiors, and in its text, she accurately predicted that women in the United States would be given the right to vote in 1920. Bly wrote stories on Europe's Eastern Front during World War I and was the first woman and one of the first foreigners to visit the war zone between Serbia and Austria. She was arrested when she was mistaken for a British spy. She had one hell of a life. On January 27, 1922, Bly died of pneumonia at St. Mark's Hospital in New York City at age 57. Some of her honors include being inducted into the National Women's Hall of Fame in 1998. She was one of four journalists honored with a U.S. postage stamp in a Women in Journalism set in 2002. In 2019, the Roosevelt Island Operating Corporation put out an open call for artists to create a Nellie Bly Memorial Art installation on Roosevelt Island. The winning proposal, The Girl Puzzle by Amanda Matthews, was announced on October 16, 2019 and opened to the public December 2021. The New York Press Club confers an annual Nellie Bly Cub Reporter Journalism Award to acknowledge the best journalistic effort by an individual with 3 years or fewer of professional experience. Bly was the subject of the 1946 Broadway musical Nellie Bly by Johnny Burke and Jimmy Van Helsing. During the 1990s, playwright Lynn Shrite wrote and toured Did You Lie, Nellie Bly, a one-woman show about Bly. An opera based on 10 Days in the Madhouse premiered in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in September of 2023. Bly has also been portrayed in films such as The Adventures of Nellie Bly from 1981, 10 Days in a Madhouse 2015, and Escaping the Madhouse, The Nellie Bly Story 2019. That is actually what got me to talk about her. I saw a post about that movie and I went and watched the movie because I love based on true story movies. And baby, watch that movie. It's a Lifetime movie and it's great. Escaping the Madhouse, The Nellie Bly Story, 2019. Y'all watch that. In 2019, the Center for Investigative Reporting released Nellie Bly Makes the News, a short animated biographical film. And also, if you were into American Horror Story as I was, the character of Lana Winters, Sarah Paulson's character in American Horror Story Asylum, is inspired by Bly's experience in the asylum. Nellie's story was also adapted into a Doctor Who audio drama by Big Finish Productions, which was released September 8th, 2021, and she has been featured as the protagonist of novels by David Blix, Marshall Goldberg, Carol McCleary, and several other authors. Bly is also one of 100 women featured in the first version of the book Good Night Stories for Rebel Girls, written by Ellen Favilla and Francesca Cavallo. So yeah, I'm sorry, y'all. I don't know if y'all as fascinated about her as I am, but I was fascinated to find out that it was a woman who started investigative journalism, that she faked being insane in order to go undercover in an insane asylum at that time. Like those, they were torture chambers, literally. They would give people electroshock therapy. They would put leeches on people. They would put people in water for crazy amounts of time, just dunk them in water and leave them under there so that they could lose oxygen because they thought that was going to do something to their brain. All that did was make them lose their damn mind and memory. They treated women horribly back then. And honestly, keep effing around with what's going on right now. See, when you say make America great again, make sure you do your history on what people really went through. So, that being said, I hope y'all enjoyed learning about Miss Elizabeth Cochrane Seamen, better known as Nellie Bly. Y'all have a beautiful, wonderful rest of the evening, and I will holler at y'all later.